is that blessing from Deuteronomy. That's just powerful. Gosh, it's good to be back. It's been a while. It has been a while. Something happened. I had a major life event. It's this guy. Katie and I welcomed Luke Wesley McCarr about a month ago now into the world. It's been so fun. We're loving him, our second child. And it's just been so good. Just having him, enjoying him and everything. And it's good to be back. It's good to be back with y'all. But I heard Michael Kaysen did a good job. Yeah. And I heard Nate did a good job. I heard he preached well. Super proud of those guys. Thankful for both of them. And so, but it's been good spending time with my wife and my kids. When we first got married and we didn't have any money, we took whatever job we could. And Katie worked at this school in Jacksonville, and it was gosh awful. It was the most awful school. It was underfunded. It was broke down. I mean, the kids they're rotten kids. You're not supposed to say it, but they were rotten kids. Everybody knows there's rotten kids. You're just not supposed to talk about it. But anyway, and if you looked at the school, it looked like she was in this portable, and the way there was this giant fence around the perimeter that looked like it would shock you. It felt like a prison, all right? And what had happened is the year before, some guy, I think it was the principal, was caught abusing kids. And so they fired him and a bunch of the staff. And so it was this new staff and this new principal that was trying to get everybody excited about working at Windy Hill, and it wasn't working. And so he realized that he had this major morale problem and that everybody was miserable and nobody wanted to be there. So every morning he played through the intercom, "Happy" by Pharrell. And at first, it's such a happy song. It's a great song. You're like, oh, yeah, I'm happy. And everybody get happy. This is good. And then, but Katie, till this day, when we hear this song, she winces a little bit. Because it's code for it's time to start school and it's going to be awful, right? And it's meant to give this effect where it's happy, but it doesn't work like that for her, right? And so it got played to her so much, it just annoys her. And for a lot of us, happiness is this catchy tune that plays so much that it eventually becomes fingernails on a chalkboard. And the quest for happiness seems elusive. It seems like it's something you'll never find. It seems very distant. You get jaded for it. You think, gosh, this is not working. I'm sick of, I don't think I'm ever going to be happy. I really tonight, I wrestled with whether or not to do this, but I don't want to talk tonight from where I should be. I want to just be family tonight. I want to talk tonight from where I am. I want to talk tonight from where I really am. I want to talk tonight from what I'm really going through. I want to talk tonight from a place of vulnerability and just the reality of life. For several months, and I feel like I'm on the other side of it, but I had been stuck in this, depression is too strong of a word, but this state of something's not quite right. I'm not quite content. Something's off. I can't even tell what it is. On paper, everything is really good. My job is going really good. Work is going good. Ministry is going good. Family, I've got a beautiful wife. I've got two awesome, healthy, rambunctious, troublemaking kids. Everything should be perfect. But this sort of low-grade presence of something's off and I'm not quite happy. And sort of why when I wake up do I not want to get out of bed? Why when I wake up am I not excited about the days when these have been really good days? And I've been wrestling through that for a number of months. And I've also, that's coincided with this time of studying the Sermon on the Mount and diving into the Sermon on the Mount. And a couple weeks ago, I'm sitting there and I'm reading this passage at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and this incredible thing happened where God met me there. God met me in the middle of my discouragement. God met me in the middle of my discontent. God met me in the middle of my unhappiness. God met me in the middle of those places where I don't know that I could talk about with everybody, where I don't quite feel like things are right inside of me and inside my heart. And so this message tonight on the Beatitudes, this is a message that is for those of you that went out searching for happiness and never found it. This is a message for those of you who live with low-grade depression present in your life and you don't know quite why. This is a message for those of you who thought, if I only got X, I would be happy, and then you got X and you got really disappointed. This is for those of you who are not content with your life, but you don't quite know why. This is for those of you that think you will never, ever really be happy and you have given up and you've resigned to being miserable for the rest of your life. Tonight, if you fit that description, I want to bring God's word to you. Let me just set this up by saying, speaking to your discontentment, speaking to your lack of happiness, and saying, at the core of discontentment, there is always a lie. There is always a lie about finding happiness. If you're discontent, if you are, I am not happy, I feel like something's off with my life, somewhere deep down inside of you, you have some lie that you believe about what will make you happy. That's why you're not content. You think something is going to make you happy that is not a true source of happiness. And in your head, and even if you're not discontent, in your head, everybody has a working thought like this. I would be happy if only I blank. Everybody has beliefs about happiness, whether they've said them out loud or really formulated them. Every one of us have beliefs about happiness. And this could be, I would be happy if only I got this promotion. I would be happy if only my family life got fixed. I would be happy if only I got a girlfriend. I would be happy if only my boyfriend would propose. I would be happy if only I had more money, if I didn't have this financial stress. Everybody has thoughts of, I would be happy if only. I would be happy. Every single one of us in this room has something in this that we like this that we think. I want to just take a minute, and I want you to ask yourself, what's in this blank for you? I would be happy if only I. And I want you to answer the question for yourself. Some of you may want to write it down, and some of you may want to look at your neighbor's answer when they write it down and cheat. No, kidding. You don't have to write it down, but you might. I want everybody to just take a minute and say, what is in this blank for me? What's in this blank for me? Just think about that for a second. And look up at me when you get it. Yeah. Now, tonight, we're going to dive into the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount, and I'll explain what that means. But going through this, I want to go through 8 lies about finding happiness. 8 lies about finding happiness. And a lot of you are going to hear things that are related to or synonymous with what you came up with in your head. Most of you will hear these lies about finding happiness and think either, yes, I believe that lie, or I did believe that lie at some point in my life. With most of these, every one of you are going to relate to at least several of these. But we're going to grab these from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. He goes up on this mountain in Matthew chapter 5 and preaches this sermon. And at the beginning, he has 9 Beatitudes. Now, when I say beatitude, you're like, what does that mean? We don't use that word anymore. Beatitudes are actually, they're a common literary form. We have Beatitudes from other rabbis that are contemporary with the time of Jesus. And what they are is they're statements about happiness. They're statements, blessed or happy is the person who blah, 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 all right? What's fascinating is if you look at all their, I kind of dug through some of the rabbinical literature on Beatitudes and what makes somebody happy. They're all, half of them are just radically disagreeing with Jesus. I mean, this stuff, you look at it, it is so different than anything anybody said before about happiness. Some of these, we've heard these verses, but I don't think we've really appreciated how out there and how different they are than what we typically think about when we think about happiness. So Jesus' Beatitudes in Matthew 5 all go in with this format. They have this structure. So they start off with the word blessed, and that word blessed, you could translate it just as easily happy, because nobody really says blessed anymore unless you're really churchy. Happy, blessed, are the blank. And there's a description of true happiness in that blank, a description of the nature of somebody that's truly happiness. For they, and then it will give a reason why those people who possess that attribute are happy, right? So that's the format for all of these Beatitudes. Now, if you pull up in your Bible, if you're new to the Bible, Matthew, it's about 3/4 of the way through the Bible, the first book of the New Testament. This is by one of Jesus' disciples. It's his biography of Jesus. In Matthew chapter 5 here, what you'll notice about all of these Beatitudes, which is fascinating, and this is a paradigm shifter here. If you look at the description of true happiness in each of these Beatitudes, it's in the present tense. It's about being happy right now. But if you look at the reason for they, or because they, the reason why they're happy, it's all because they will do something. Because something's going to happen in the future. They're happy in the present, not because of the present status, not because of what's happening right now. They're happy in the present because of something that is eternal. Now that is weighty. You're not going to find happiness in the present until you look into eternity. That's the first thing I want to anchor you in is if you look at present circumstances, there is elements of suffering and discontentment that you can't ground yourself on or you'll go crazy. Happiness is rooted in hope. Happiness is rooted in what God is going to do in this beautiful, spectacular thing we call eternity. But I want to give you 8 lies about happiness. 8 lies about finding happiness. Lie number 1 about finding happiness. I would be happy if only I felt more spiritual. I would be happy if only I felt more spiritual. And a lot of y'all are thinking, of course, I would be happy if only I felt more spiritual. What are you talking about? My car's gone nuts. I'm going to a different church. This guy is crazy. I would be happy if only I felt more spiritual. A lot of you think if I felt like I was reading my Bible more, if I felt like I was praying more, if I felt like I was like a really spiritual person, if I felt like I was really, and I bought into this for years. If I just feel totally, spiritual, I'll be happy. Blessed are the poor in what? Spirit. Spiritually poor. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now that word poor is literally, it's pauper. It's somebody that begs. What is a pauper? It's somebody that is so poor that they stand out at the street, and as people pass by, they say, I have needs. Like, they're so poor, they've lost their own dignity. They're so poor that they're asking other people to provide for their needs. They have nothing. They have found their own need. Somebody who's a pauper in spirit, it's somebody that says, I need the Holy Spirit. Because there's areas of my life that he's missing. I need more of God in my life. I'm not some wonderful spiritual giant. I'm not the most holy person in the room. I actually need more of God. Now, a lot of you are arguing with me and you're saying, no. Like, you're supposed to be rich in spirit. You're supposed to, like, feel spiritual and feel godly and feel like you read the Bible more than other people and feel like you pray more than other people. And I want you to read the Bible 10 times as much as you do now. I want you to pray 10 times as much as you do now. I'm not telling you not to. What I'm telling you is when you feel arrogant about the fact that you do it and you think you're really spiritual, that's what really concerns me. Because this is what makes Christianity distinct from every other faith or every other. If you're not a Christian and exploring spirituality, this is what makes Christianity really weird. And this is what makes it spectacular. Is that it's not the people that feel like they're the church lady. It's the people that feel like they are desperate and in need of God and wish they had more of him that God honors. It's not the self-righteous people who think they're better than everybody else because they prayed more. It's the people that are like, I need to pray more. I need more of God in my life. That is where you actually find happiness. Blessed is the poor of spirit, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, why are they happy? Because they're the ones that are going to inherit God's kingdom. They're the ones that are going to inherit God's rule. They're the ones that are going to partner with God for eternity in heaven. And why? Why are these people? Why are the poor in spirit, the people that feel like they're not spiritual, the ones that are really happy? It's because God loves humility. Every one of you, if I got to know you, I would talk to you about a personality pet peeve. Everybody has a personality pet peeve. Like, I can't stand people that talk too much, or I can't stand people that, only talk about themselves, or I can't stand people that are a bad listener. If God had a personality pet peeve, if God has a pet peeve of, like, this annoys him, it's pride. It repels him. He's drawn to humility. He touches people that really walk in humility. God hates pride. And so it's the ones that feel their own poverty and their own need for him that he actually gets drawn to. What does this mean for my life? If you want to really be happy, if you want to really find happiness and you are stuck in depression, touch your own need for God. Touch your own need for his Spirit. Know that you need more of God. That's the first step to being happy. It's incredible truth. Number 2, second lie about finding happiness. I would be happy if only I was never sad. My car gets crazier and crazier and crazier. How can anyone refute this statement? Because sad and happy are opposites. And so not sad means happy, right? Wrong. If we can just avoid sadness, we'll finally be happy, right? If we can just shut up our sad emotions and stuff them down deep inside of us and not really be in contact with them, then we'll just be happy, right? A lot of you think you are unhappy. Why am I unhappy? I'm unhappy because, dadgummit, sad things happen in my life. right? I'm unhappy because this person has died. I am unhappy, and I'll never be happy because I've failed at this job. I am unhappy, and I will never be happy because I was a victim of something really, really horrific, and I am sad, and so I will never be happy. And a lot of you thought in your statement, I would only be happy if this sad thing could be erased, that's in your life, that's really hurt you. Happy are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Happy are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. I remember when I was 10 years ago, when I was starting off in ministry, and this is my first year working at a church full time, and my life fell apart. Like every personal thing of loss I had two very close people to me that were simultaneously terminally ill, and my life was falling apart, and I had a lot of the burden of a caretaker. And I remember looking at my best friend, and I remember saying to him, "Why is this happening? I am miserable. I am sick of this pain. I'm sick of suffering through this. I am sick of being sad all the time. I'm sick of the burden of this, and I can't stand it." And he was young, starting out in ministry right beside me. And he looked at me and he said the weirdest thing to me. He said, "Matt, this is going to sound very strange, but in some ways I envy you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Matt, I don't have the scar tissue to pastor anybody. I see the people that when they come through the church door and they have cancer, they walk right past my office. And they walk into yours. Because you actually can take what you're going through and in this strange way feel their pain. And you can cry with them and you can feel it." And he's like, "I have nothing to offer them. I don't have the scar tissue to be a pastor, but you do." And I was just like, I'd never thought of it like that. I never thought of it like that. There have been, and I don't want to go into the details of the seasons of my life, but like there have been very difficult seasons in my life, very painful seasons of my life. When it was emotionally excruciating. And I can look at you today and testify to moments that I have looked at God and said, my life sucks. I don't get what you're doing. I don't even know if I trust you. I am confused and I am hurting. And I can testify to you today about moments like that I experienced the comfort of Christ. That I touched the comfort of God in a powerful way that was euphoric, that was exhilarating, and it made absolutely no sense. And that is what I want for each and every one of you, is to learn what it means to mourn. Now, a few months ago, I did a sermon on mourning. And practically, I want to just give a second on what do I mean by that. Mourning, it is the ability to look at God and to be honest with him about how you feel when you're hurting. It's the ability to feel close enough to God that I can look at him and say, my life is not good and I need you to touch me and I'm hurting. A lot of you are in this room and you have that discontentment in your life. And the reason that you are not happy is because you haven't let yourself feel sad. You haven't allowed yourself to mourn. You broke up with some girl and it was 10 years ago and you've never mourned it. You have somebody in your life that died, and it was years ago, and you have never, ever looked at God and said, I'm angry and confused, I'm hurting, help me. Because you're scared that he's going to strike you. But he's this big God, and he can take it, and he loves you, and he doesn't want to strike you. He wants to comfort you. If you really want to be happy, you got to mourn. You've got to mourn, because that's where you experience the comfort of Christ, and you'll discover this strange truth that God's comfort is so great that it makes mourning completely worth it. It makes mourning worth it. That's how great God's comfort is. God's comfort is more enjoyable than never suffering to begin with. Third lie about finding happiness. I would be happy if only I was significant. I would be happy if only I was significant. I would be happy if I just got that promotion. I would be happy if I just met this athletic feat. I would be happy if only I had this many Instagram followers, or met this. Or I would be happy if only I achieved making this much money. I would be happy if I did this thing that would make me a significant person, right? A lot of us think like that. I would be happy if only everyone saw me as successful. And I was, like, hey, I win. I've done something significant, and everyone else is laughing now. I look at me succeed. Watch me succeed. This is the one that I relate to the most. I'm an Enneagram type 3. I was in an argument with somebody. Enneagram 3s. I think they have a terrible reputation. I think people are like, watch out for the 3s. And somebody's like, no, they're good. And it's like, you're just saying that because you're scared. Like Enneagram 3s, they're the ones, the achiever, right? The good tests call us the achiever, which means you achieve a lot of things. The bad tests call us the performer, which means you make it look like you're achieving a lot, but you're really not that great. But the achiever, driven, I love to do big things. I love to feel successful. I love to kind of slip in little comments where you'll know that I'm successful and that I've done awesome things. Like, I love feeling significant. I love being able to talk about my achievements and feel like I've achieved something. It's really like my biggest temptation, if I'm honest with you. What? Oh, this is so good. Keep it coming. Those are the moments that I live for, because deep down it fulfills my need to feel significant. It fulfills my need for things to be awesome and for me to feel awesome, to be great. I need it. It's unhealthy. Blessed are the achievers. No, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Now, nobody uses the word meekness anymore. What do I mean by meekness? Sometimes it's translated gentleness. Here, what this means is it's a state of being fine with being insignificant. It's being okay with it's not about me. It's being okay with I didn't get credit for this. It's being okay with this was not my achievement that I can brag about. And it's getting to a place. Now, when I'm in an unhealthy state, I am like constantly driven and trying to make myself feel like an achiever and be awesome, right? And convince everybody else I'm awesome. But when I'm in the healthy lane, what I've got to do personally for me is I have to be okay with not being significant. I have to be okay with being hidden. I have to be okay with not being on a stage. I have to be okay with being insignificant, because if I'm significant, Jesus can't be. If it's about me looking and feeling awesome, that distracts from him. And a lot of you are maybe you're not a 3, maybe you're not as bad at this as I am, but like you struggle with trying to find significance, trying to obtain achievement. And if you really want to be happy, you got to let go of that. You've got to let go of that. You've got to let go of your need to be significant. And ironically, look at the blessing that he promises to the meek. They're the ones that will inherit the earth. Inheriting the earth, that means like owning the world, right? In eternity. Who do we think of as the people that own the world? It's the powerful. It's the achiever. It's the great and mighty. And Jesus says, forget that. Like, in eternity, the ones that I'm going to reward are the ones that you thought were meek. The ones that you felt were insignificant. Those are going to be the ones that I really reward with real leadership and real significance. So you have to be asking the question, like, Makar, this is really fine and dandy, but like, I'm internally a driven person. How do I obtain this? Like, how do I switch my heart from craving its own significance to laying that aside, saying, I don't need to be significant, and I'm fine with other people being significant. I'm fine with Christ being the one that's truly significant. How do I get away from my need for my boss to like me, my need for my family to think I'm awesome, my need even for you? Is it VC that said I was awesome? That was really fulfilling. How do I get away from that need? How do I get away from that need? And I was really wrestling with this for months. And I came to this realization, and I hope that all of you come to this realization, because it only really makes sense in light of eternity, and it is a very difficult place to come, but it is so liberating, it's that at the end of my life, I am not going to stand before my boss. At the end of my life, I'm not going to stand before my family. At the end of my life, I'm not going to stand before the people that I want to think I achieve a lot. At the end of my life, I'm going to stand before Jesus. I'm going to stand before Jesus. And there's only one opinion about me that is going to matter at all. So many of you live to impress people that you won't know in 5 years. You're literally, those people in high school that you really wanted to impress, are you even in contact with them anymore? No. But you know who you are going to see is this beautiful man, Jesus. You'll stand before him. You'll stand before Jesus. You're not going to be happy. Wait, let me see here. Did I? Okay. 4. Okay. Number 4, fourth lie. I would be happy if only I justified myself. I would be happy if only I justified myself. I would be happy if I could feel like a good person, if I could really defend myself against the people that are accusing me. A lot of you believe this. Growing up, my dad, I'll say this. When my wife and I first got married, when I take a shower, if I am angry, I have conversations in the shower. I rehearse every argument. My wife, when we got married, she thought I was nuts. She was really scared. She had never said. But the problem is, I thought this was completely normal because my father did it every single day of his life. If you wanted to know who he was mad at, all you had to do was stand outside the bathroom door. And he would rehearse every single fight that he was going to have that week, right? Over and over again. And my dad was originally from Egypt, so when I tell stories about him, he has an Egyptian accent. But my dad's arch nemesis at work was this, I never met him, but it was this guy named Andy. And he would say, all I could hear from his shower every day was, no, Andy, no, Andy, that's not the way it is going to be, Andy. And you could hear him in these arguments. And he would get ready for them, because he was going to defend himself and vindicate himself. And so one day, my dad, he loved to impress people with his American colloquialisms, his little American phrases. He goes, Matt, I need you to help me. I need to use a word, and I need to make sure I'm saying it right so nobody laugh at me. How you say the word ventriloquist? I said ventriloquist, like you have the puppet and you talk for the puppet. And I'm like, ventriloquist? He goes, that's why ventriloquist. It's like trill, equist, ventriloquist, ventriloquist. I was like, Dad, why are you asking me this word? He goes, I just need it for something. Don't ask questions. The next day, outside of his bathroom, I hear him saying, Andy, you think that I tell David what to do? I don't tell David what to do. He talks for himself. I'm not his ventriloquist. And in his mind, he's thinking, these Americans, they are impressed that I know these words. No Egyptian like me knows these words like ventriloquist, And so, but you would hear these arguments because he was always positioning himself to defend himself. And I'm not going to lie, I inherited a little of that. I like to argue with people in the shower that aren't there. But we all tend to have this sort of internal attorney. Every single one of you has an inner lawyer. This voice inside of you that can defend you against the greatest accusations and defeat the people that are coming against you. And you're really good at arguing. We all have an inner attorney. We all have an inner attorney that argues that we are righteous. We are good people who don't do wrong things. I am filled up with righteousness. My inner attorney tells me that every single day. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Hunger, what does it mean to be hungry? What does it mean to be thirsty? It means you have nothing and you know it, and you feel it. You feel your lack of righteousness. You feel your lack of your own character. You're aware of your own brokenness. You're aware that you're not an ethical person. You're aware that you can't be justified. And you want to really find happiness. If you want to really find happiness, you're not going to be happy because you found out how righteous you are. It doesn't work like that. If you think you're righteous, you're going to be miserable. If you think you have good character, you're going to be absolutely miserable. You become happy when you find out how much you need righteousness. You become happy when you find out, I need better character. I'm not an ethical person. I make mistakes. I'm not as good as I want to pretend that I am. I'm not as good as my inner lawyer tells me I am. What you've got to do is you've got to fire your inner lawyer. You've got to fire that thing in you that defends you and justifies you over and over again and convinces you that you're full of righteousness. Instead, embrace the fact that you need righteousness. Because you become happy when you find out how much you need righteousness. Why do you become happy when you find out that you need righteousness? Because that is when you discover that righteousness is a person. And his name is Jesus. That's when you find out that your righteousness isn't inside of you, it's in him. It's outside of you. And that's when you really discover the gospel. Fifth lie. I would be happy if only the people who hurt me were unhappy. Growing up, there was a girl, and she had a mama, and her name was Miss Milam. And Miss Milam was crazy, okay? Miss Milam had a reputation. Don't get on Miss Milam's bad side, because Miss Milam will make your life miserable. I don't know if you've ever known of these people, okay? I had a friend, and he was not that bright, but he dated Miss Milam's daughter. Bad mistake. He thought he was cool because he had this awesome sports car. No. After school, he walks out to his sports car. All over it are Oreos that have been like the sugar has melted into his car. The whole thing is covered with Oreos. And we're like, who? Oh, we know who did this. It was her mom. It was Miss Milam, right? Okay. And that is a lie that a lot of us believe is I would be happy if only the people who hurt me, because he hurt her baby, were unhappy. The most miserable state of my life is when I believe this statement. The most miserable state of my life, it was almost 20 years ago now, but I looked at a pastor and he said, how can I pray for you? And I said, I want this person to die a slow and painful death because they've hurt me. He was like, we're going to talk after the service. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. You're not going to find happiness in the people who hurt you being hurt back. You're going to find happiness when you release the people that hurt you. You're going to find happiness when you forgive the people that hurt you. A lot of you are miserable and you're not happy, and the reason you're not happy is because there's somebody that did something awful to you, and you're holding on to it, and you despise them, and you want to make their life miserable, and you think it's hurting them that you're bitter. It's not. They don't even know. They're not affected by it. You know who it's hurting that you're bitter? Is you. And you need to forgive them, not for them. You need to forgive them for you. Because it's only when you release that you discover mercy. Because you know why you can't forgive them? Is because you think that you're better than them and you don't need mercy. You don't believe the gospel. You don't believe that Jesus had to die for you. You think you're righteous enough. You don't need mercy. So why should you give mercy? And it's only when you face your own need for mercy that you ever have the ability to forgive anyone. I don't know how anybody forgives anybody who isn't a Christian. I don't know how anybody who doesn't know the gospel, who doesn't know that God was merciful and died for them, is able to forgive anyone else. It's this incredible power when you discover the gospel to release everyone. Lie number 6, I would be happy if only I could look like a good person in front of everyone. I would be happy if only I could look, keyword here, look like a good person in front of everyone. I would be happy if everybody else thought I was awesome, if I did great things in front of people, if I could impress other people. Jesus says this, blessed are the pure in heart, not in externals, for they will see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, not the pure in externals, but the pure in heart. Now, I want to zero in on this word purity. When we talk about purity throughout the Old Testament, this word gets used, and when you talk about purity in the Old Testament, what do you keep pure? The temple, the cleanliness. This word has that connotation of talking about temple purity. And because this is the place where they would meet God, and it had to be kept from other gods. A lot of the weird Leviticus laws, like you have to go through a purification process after you touch a dead body before you go into the temple. People are like, we've got to have undertakers. Is it a sin to touch a dead body? No. It's about cleanliness, because the nations around them would do necromancy. They would worship the dead. And so you had to go through a purification process to keep necromancy, to keep the worship of the dead out of God's temple. It was these great lengths to maintain purity. Why do you need purity in the temple? Because the temple is the place where they would go to see God. It had to be pure because it was a meeting place for God. Now look at what Jesus is telling you to keep pure, not what the Old Testament told you to keep pure, the temple. Jesus is telling you to keep your heart pure. Do you know why? Oh, this is the beauty of the gospel right here. Oh, this is really good. Like the purity that you need is not in the temple anymore. It's in your heart. You know why? Because you know the place where you go to see God, it's no longer a building. But by the blood of Jesus, he wants to meet you in the depths of your heart. Oh, keep it pure. Keep it pure. If you really believed that, you'd keep your heart so pure. Think about it. If you see a bunch of middle school boys and they're telling a dirty joke and a female teacher walks in, clean, topic, clean, right? If you really believe that God dwelt in your heart, if you really believe that the Holy Spirit dwelt in your innermost being, what thoughts would you never entertain there? What things would you never think on? Because when you constantly discover his presence inside of you, the way you live, your heart becomes different. You regulate it differently. Number 7, I would be happy if only I could be free from conflict. I would be happy if only I could be free from conflict. I hate conflict. I'm not one for conflict. If only I didn't have to be in fights, if only there was never any conflict, I would be happy. And to this, Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers, the people that jump in the middle of conflict. That's what peacemaking is. You're jumping in the middle of conflict to end it. For they will be called children of God. It's the Christian response is not to avoid conflict, but get in the middle of it to bring peace. Why? So I'm going to steal this illustration from Chip. He used it several weeks ago. But in 2013, in the Ukraine, Eastern Europe, they had the guy that was ranked as the most abusive dictator in the world, the most corrupt dictator in the world. And he decided to leave the European Union. And so the people started to riot in the streets. You can see the smoke. They would climb up on the statues, and there were riots. And these riots were against this dictator, but eventually these riots became violent. And they started setting fire on the streets. And so one side is this corrupt dictator. The other side is the people who are rioting and being violent and setting fire to the streets. Now, this group of Orthodox priests, of Christians, they saw these riots in the streets, and here's how they responded. They stood in the middle of it. They stood there with a cross. Because that is the Christian vision for peacemaking, is when you've got guns with dictators behind you and you've got rioters with fire in front of you, you stand in the middle with the cross of Christ and you bring reconciliation. That is the Christian vision for peacemaking, is to bring the reconciliation of Christ to every aspect of society. We're short on time, so I'll speed through this. Number 8, eighth lie. I would be happy if only people liked me. I would be happy if only people liked me. If only people thought I was awesome. If only people thought I was great. If only people thought I was special. We laugh at this man every night. But let's be honest. We all have a little inner lawyer and we all have a little Michael Scott. This core belief that if people really liked me, I would be happy. I want people to like me. We all have this struggle with wanting people to approve of us. But look at what Jesus says. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and when people persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, because people hate you. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. He says, your happiness is not in people liking you, it's in people when they hate you for Christ's sake. We think we're going to find happiness when everybody else likes us. That's not real happiness. In 2015, there were a bunch of Egyptian Coptic Christians in Libya, and 21 of them were paraded out to the beach by ISIS members. And what they did is they systematically beheaded these 21 Christians, videotaped it, and they sent it to their wives. Now, what's crazy is the gospel says happiness is not the person that's liked by everyone. Jesus is saying that this right here is happiness. Because it's better to suffer with Christ than it is to have the pleasures of the world. That should radically change the way you see happiness. This is real happiness. To those of you who feel like happiness is elusive, to those of you who connected with me at the beginning of this message because you feel so distant from happiness and you feel like it's unattainable, to those of you who have been so let down by the quest for happiness, I want you to ask these questions. I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, do you know of anyone who has mourned the condition of society more than anyone? Do you know of someone who stood outside the gates of Jerusalem and mourned the people's separation from God? Do you know of anyone who is meek? Do you know of a man who is so important, yet he counts it for nothing, and he washes other people's feet? Do you know of a man who shows mercy? Do you know of a man who is so merciful that he looks upon people in their deepest moments of sin and reaches down right there and loves them? Do you know of a man who is so pure in heart that he has never, ever violated his Father's will? He has never, ever sinned, and he has never, ever fallen away from God. Do you know of a man who has made peace with so many, who has reconciled so many men and women to God to have a peaceful relationship with God so that we can come close to God and enjoy him? Do you know of a man who was ultimately persecuted for this and killed for it? He is where we find true happiness.